Good afternoon, everybody. I guess I have to say good morning because some people are on the West Coast. So welcome to the Legal Tech Mastery Show. It's another Friday after all. I'm really glad that you guys are here. Kathleen is enjoying the dogs on Facebook. And Josh made it on YouTube. Good to see you, Josh. All right, the question of the day. How many jobs have you had in the legal industry? So don't count jobs that are not in the legal industry, but how many jobs in your career in the legal industry have you had? If you think about that number. I actually had to go look at my resume to figure that out. All right. Let's see. Make sure everything's working here. Yep. See, we're live on Facebook and we're live on YouTube. It's nice when the video works. All right, so Sonia says happy Friday. Sonia, let me know how many jobs you've had in the legal industry. Wade says 5. It's funny because some people stay at jobs for a long time, and I've actually stayed at some jobs for like 8 years, but I'm really old, so I've had a number of jobs. Jennifer Buckley says 6. Uh-oh, I hope I don't have the highest number because I really don't jump jobs. There we go. Kimberly's at 9. Getting close. All right, Josh, tell us how many jobs you've had in the legal industry. So I'm really excited about today's show. I have a really good friend that's almost like a brother to me, and he's been really supportive of Litigation Support Guru from the beginning. He was the first person to download my podcast. He was the person that I called when I had my first 12 people on my website back in 2011. And he's been there for me, and I've been there for him, I think. All right, Josh is saying he's guessing 4. I mean, I would have had to guess too, because I went back and looked at my resume so I could tell you guys. All right, Suzanne on YouTube says 3. Sonia's going to go with 5 hats at the firm I'm at now. Okay. Yeah, jobs can be a different position at the same place, certainly. All right, Osneal, 2 years working as a project engineer. And Ramesh, let me know how many jobs you've had in the legal industry, okay? So anyways, I'm really excited to have my friend on the show today. He's a really good person. If you don't know him already, you should get to know him because he's just a good guy. Very smart, very geeky. All right. I'm just looking at your comments. Making sure that the comments that are on the page actually come through my software. Uh-oh, Wade's got an updated answer. All right, Wade's saying 16 years at first, 16 years at second. Wow. And he's old too. 16 years at the first job and 16 years at the second. Wow. I am envious of people that can do that. stay at one place for that long. The most I've stayed is 8 years. All right. Patricia Pat Lucas says she's worn 4 hats in the industry. And Kimberly says she started out as a secretary, then paralegal, then database position. And earlier she said that's all at the same place. Ramesh says in legal technology, just one job for 10 years in proposal writing and biz dev. And Luis Alfonso says my answer is easy, only one. He's a newbie. All right, so let's officially start the show. Welcome to the Legal Tech Mastery Show. My name is Amy Bowser-Rollins, and I'm really excited to have you all here. We've got a good group going on in both Facebook and YouTube. I'd like to not waste any of your time and get right to it, so I'm going to bring up my friend David. There he is, David Carns, my friend David. So David is currently the Chief Strategy Officer at CasePoint, but we're going to talk about his story today and see how he landed there, because he has a pretty good story to tell. Wouldn't you say, David?
I think so. Hey, everyone. Hi, Amy.
All right. Sonia saying 13 in the current position, 10 as network admin, help desk, etc. Okay. Is that the same place, Sonia? I think you said that. I've worn 5 hats at the firm I'm at now. Yeah, so 13 in current position, 10 as network admin. And Pat says she was at PB. That's a acronym for a law firm here, Pat and Boggs, for 23 years. Was it really that long, Pat? Wow. Wow. Okay, my answer is 10. What is yours, David? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, I think if you count places, 8. If you count positions, probably like 11 or 12.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start back at the beginning. We're having a little bit of issue with your audio, David. Let's see.
I saw a little bit of
your video. Let me make an adjustment here. Okay. Yeah, hopefully it'll stick. Sonia says, Sonia's got Pat beat. She says 30 years at the same place. Jude, good to see you here. I know you've been trying to make it. So Jude Jeffers says 4 roles with TN Public Defenders. Okay. So David, you started out as a law clerk working for medical malpractice attorneys right out of college. So
yeah, although I just realized I gave you bad information.
Okay.
Because now that I think about it, because you were talking about like what jobs have you had in legal? Actually, when I was in college, I was like a runner. I was a court filing runner.
Oh yeah, okay.
For a law firm.
Those.
So even pre-college or before law school, yeah.
Okay. So then right out of college, you became a law clerk, but then you decided to go to law school. So when you were thinking about going to law school, what was your goal at that time for your career?
Yeah, I think I always assumed I was going to go to law school. If for no other reason, I was completely unemployable when I graduated from college. I was a philosophy major and I was a music minor, so I had no skills. And I knew I was going to take a gap year. So I figured I'd work at a law firm to do the gap year just because that way I would make sure as a gut check that I wanted to go to law school.
Right.
I'm actually not so sure I made the best decision, but I went, and once you start it, you just you have to finish. But I always liked the law firm environment.
Okay. All right. So then you went to law school, but then you went right into IT consulting. So how did that happen?
Yeah, I actually started a consulting company during law school. So I did IT consulting with a colleague of mine for law firms in the Chicago area. And by the time I was in my third year of law school, I was full-time employed and running a company. So I knew what I wanted to do by that point. I passed the bar in Illinois, but I've never practiced.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I had several JDs on my team, doing lit support that never practiced, but, still, I mean, I have lots of friends that are JDs.
I was told by a number of the partners at my firm that make sure you really want to do this, which is to say practice law, because once you start down the process, it's really hard to back out of it. So I'm really glad I took the turn that I did.
Okay. All right. Kay Huber's saying those are difficult majors, both difficult majors. Ones you had. And Karen's in the house.
No, they're great.
Karen Magnus.
Well, a lot of them, and the major was a lot about just thinking about things. I mean, obviously philosophy major, just think about things, but it's how you think about things. And I think that has lended itself well to lit support and e-discovery.
Yeah. All right, so then you spent 6 to 7 years in IT consulting, including being a law firm IT director. And then
Yes.
you met Amy Bowser.
I did.
I went to work at an IT consulting firm to do litigation support arm, and you and I shared an office for 1 month, a big office, for 1 month, and got to know each other. But you were off to manage a team of lit support folks. So what were you thinking at that point for that role?
Well, so part of it was by that point, I've been doing pretty hardcore IT stuff for a while. I went from, going to law school and wanting to be an attorney to understanding how to build very complex networks, wide area networking, how to build exchange servers and all that stuff. And when I was an IT director before we met, I was in charge of litigation support.
Yeah.
But really, there was a manager that was really responsible for it day to day. To be honest, part of it was I recognized the IT field was changing, and it was moving to much more managed services. And someone like me who kind of had the art of technology background, not the business of technology background, I thought, I need a shift here. Otherwise, I feel like what I like to do in technology is going to change. And that did kind of happen. So I wanted to try a new approach to technology. And I thought the future was likely litigation support and e-discovery. And I think I picked a good one.
Okay. So what did you learn? I remember seeing you a few months into that job at an event. And I think you were about 4 months in, and Karen might remember this because it was a Sage Consulting event that you came to. And anyways, I asked you how it was going, and you had this look of like, I don't know if it was stress, but it was like frustration or whatever. And of course, I've been there, done that. So I asked you, and you mentioned that it was kind of interesting switching from IT to litigation support e-discovery in terms of working with the attorneys. And you said to me, why do they always come to you at the last minute? And I started laughing, of course, and everybody on this call is going to start laughing. So what did you learn about working with those legal teams, and why did you have that reaction, and did it ever get better?
So part of it was I was accustomed to in IT of working long hours. I mean, in IT, you often have to be working at, midnight to 3 a.m. sort of thing, because you can't be working on live systems when people rely on them. And I was accustomed to emergencies. I mean, power would go out, there'd be internet outages, you have to respond to emergencies. I didn't mind that sort of work. What kind of irked me, and it's taken me a long time, I'm probably not entirely over it, is that all of a sudden I'm beholden to emergencies that weren't created because just an accident occurred, but because someone didn't think through something. Right. Or someone didn't bother to think about how it would impact other departments until, an hour before. Yep. And I get it, it's still an emergency, it still has to be dealt with, but it was hard for me to accept that emergencies that weren't of my creation or weren't a pure accident were kind of running my life. And what I've learned from that is in lit support, you have to prepare for everything as if the, stuff's going to hit the fan, and then the next 30 minutes, because it almost always will, unless you're prepared for it.
When I hired back when I was at DLA Piper, I hired a couple of IT. I tried to switch some people from IT, and some worked and some didn't. And the ones that didn't had that problem that you're talking about with, the way IT works and how everything's planned out, except for like help desk, of course.
Right.
You have project that you planned and you can control. Versus, me trying to hire an IT person that doesn't understand why attorneys are coming to us at the last minute. And I always know those people aren't going to work out if they can't, figure out how to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm a commensurate planner. So the whole, what is it? Fail to plan, or no, plan to fail, or I forget how the saying goes. But I like to plan everything out to the nth degree. Mm-hmm. And I realized that in litigation support, there's just a lot of variables you can't account for, which is also why I know we try to do things so immediately. Just do them in Let's Support. Even if something is due 4 days from now and it can be done in 1 hour, do not wait for 3 days from now to do it, because some crisis will happen 3 days from now that will prevent you from doing the hour thing on the last day.
Yeah, that's
so
good
it
advice.
is often best just to take care of everything immediately. And that was an adjustment, because I like to plan and ponder and think and then execute. But in Let's Support, you can't do that as much. You just have to take them in as they come.
Very true. That's good advice. All right, so you spent some time at a law firm managing Let's Support people, and then the next step is you joined what I call a service provider, an e-discovery service provider. What interested you about taking on that role?
Well, okay, so a couple things. One is I had been, by this point, working inside of law firms probably for a total of 7 or 8 years in different capacities at different times in my life. I do really well in the law firm environment. I understand how attorneys think, generally speaking. I understand how administration thinks, and I fit in well in a law firm environment. But it is exhausting. It is absolutely.
I was like, "Where's he going with this?" What do you mean it was exhausting? In what way?
Well, it takes. I got to tell you, it takes a lot of just. It's mental gymnastics constantly. You're always kind of positioning. You're very careful how you say certain things. Okay. You're very open how you say other things. It's tiring. And so I wanted to go to the service provider just to take a break from the inside the law firm environment. Frankly, I always assumed I would have gone back by now. It's been almost 8 years since I've been at the service provider case point. But I just assumed I'd go back, because that's how my career often went. I was at a service provider, then I was not related to litigation support, but then I went in-house, then I went out, and then I went back.
Right.
So the other thing is I really like technology. And, at times I've been a bit of a software developer. I like databases. I like creating things. Yep. And, I was an entrepreneur right out of law school, or in law school, I was an entrepreneur. And I wanted to get back into that. And I got to join a team from the ground up of a company trying to make a significant change. And it was fun. So I took the leap. One thing I will say real quick is that when I left the consulting company to go into the law firm doing Let's Support full time, which I'd never done before, that was a leap of faith. But it was a calculated risk. And that worked out. And leaving the law firm was the same thing. I think in this industry and in your career, you have to take leaps of faith. Because playing things really safe tends not to work out so well in the long run, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I did the same thing. I moved from a DC paycheck, working in DC, to a paycheck in Maryland, and that was when I joined Piper. But I ended up being there 8 years, and I ended up, getting really good pay raises. So it all worked out in the end. But I remember when you took the job at CasePoint, I said, "What are you going to be doing?" And you said, "I'm going to be doing business development." And I was like, "Sales? My IT friend, my geeky friend?" The dogs are barking. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but apparently Amazon might
They're
be
not too loud.
delivering. Um, uh, Biz dev. So, what was your plan for being successful with your background, being successful in doing business development in our industry?
So I knew first and foremost that I would never be a good traditional salesperson. It would never going to happen because this is not my interest. What I've always been is someone who loves to learn about something, see how it applies to the real world, and then I tell people about it, sometimes whether they want to hear about it or not. And I get really excited about geeky things like an Excel formula or a macro that you could write in Word, or back in the day, Word Perfect and reveal codes and all the stuff you could do.
Yeah.
I love explaining things to people. And I think by my very nature, I'm a bit of a proselytizer. I like
What's
to
that?
convince people.
Wait, you just used a word I don't know. What is that word?
to proselytize, but basically try to explain and convince people of something. It's often used kind of a religious context, but the whole point is that I get excited about things and I want to share that excitement. And I figured, you know what? I think sales is a lot about that.
Yeah.
It's about, if I'm excited about the product and I'm only going to sell someone something that a product I believe in, I just want to share all of its benefits. And I figure, I might be able to make a go of this. I'm a horrible person building a sales funnel and doing all the follow-ups you have to do. I'm horrible at it, but I'm really enthusiastic, and that enthusiasm tends to translate into people getting kind of pulled into the same sort of thing.
I've had some people tell me I should do sales because I'm so after I'm passionate and I'm like just excited about something, like, wow, you should do sales. I'm like, no. I don't want anything that's like about the numbers, trying to make numbers every month. I saw that when I went to the service provider side myself, the stress that people were under just trying to make certain numbers every month. Okay, so you've been a case point for 7.5 years, like you said.
Yep.
And since you've been there, you started out in this, business development role, but over time, your role within the company sort of evolved. And then most recently, you got the title of Chief Strategy Officer. But you've been thinking strategically for this, entrepreneurial company for a while already. So how do you see your role in the company now with this new title? What's shifting in your mind in terms of what you've been doing versus what you're going to be doing?
In a sense, not a whole lot has changed. And what I mean by that is, when the company started, there was like 4 of us or something. And now we have over 150 people. So, but in the early days, you're responsible for everything. I literally, my office was a closet, and you had to think about marketing materials. You had to think about how the invoices looked, and you had to think about everything else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of strategic on all those levels. And you had to think about positioning. So I basically, I like that part a lot. I've been doing less of the administrative things that I didn't like in the past, and I'm able to now focus full time on strategy, which incidentally still has a lot to do about sharing my enthusiasm for Case Point.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have to talk about both of our experience at Georgetown. So, at some point during the time you're at Case Point, in January 2011, because I looked at your LinkedIn profile, you started teaching at Georgetown, and then shortly after that, you approached the director, Kelly. She'll probably see this at some point, and said, "You know what? We should have some courses on litigation support and e-discovery." And I don't even know how you pitched it, so I wanted to know. Remind me. I don't even know if I ever knew. How did you pitch it? What was your thinking? Because I'm so grateful in the end, and there's many students that went through that program for years now. So what were you thinking in terms of our industry and what that program could do?
Well, part of it was I was invited to this staff meeting, educators meeting, and they had the head of the School of Continuing Education at Georgetown was at the meeting. And he said, folks, I challenge all of you to think about how we can, you can use any analogy you want, but how we can rise the tide, which will lift all boats for the school. How can we bring in more classes and more education opportunities? And I was sitting there and I'm like, well, actually, all I teach is the technology class for this paralegal studies program. What do I know? But I will tell you one thing. It doesn't have to do about paralegals per se, or purely about paralegals, but there are a dearth of people in litigation support, which is they're not very many, and it's the same people changing hands and going from one job to the next, and it's really hard to get into this industry. It would be, I would imagine, a good idea for an institution like Georgetown to try to teach people and bring new blood into litigation support. So I mentioned it. They said, raise your hand if you have any idea. And I said, all right, well, I have an idea. And I think dollar signs kind of turned on for the administrators, because like, oh my gosh, we could have like 3 or 4 classes about this. But for me, I just really earnestly believe that we needed new people in the industry. So
somewhere where they could learn. I also don't think it would have happened if Kelly wasn't there. I think Kelly really, she took it and ran with it and made it happen. Don't you think?
She's entrepreneurial as well. Maybe in that case, in the confines of her role as director of the program, which is entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But she also was thinking outside the box. So she's just a creative person. I just came up with the idea. She had to create all the stuff and get all the people lined up and do all the things. I did teach the advanced litigation and trial technology class for about, I think 6 semesters, something like that. And I really enjoyed that. But, I played a part with just starting to spark. She had to flame what do you call it? Put air to the flames to make that whole thing grow. And, and remember, the reason why no other organization, there were some, but why no other organizations really were doing this education is because of the way litigation support started. It started at a very particular time in the history of technology and law firms, and it ended up being the first wave of paralegals and IT people that kind of started this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But then no one else was being introduced to how to do this. So this was an option to kind of tell people this is an actual career that you could have, and it's a very rewarding one.
Yep, I agree. So we ended up with, just for those that don't know, the Georgetown Paralegal Program added 3 courses. One was the Advanced Lit Tech that David just talked about, which was hands-on in software on a computer. And then they added a e-discovery class, so you could learn e-discovery rules, the process of e-discovery and things to think about. And then they added a course on legal project management, and they brought in a guy who was already teaching at Georgetown for part of that class to teach the PMI foundation. And then somebody else came in, Jessica, and taught. She was very passionate about applying legal project management foundation to legal. So it worked out really well, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. So you moved to the Advanced Lit Tech class, and then you put my name in the hat with Kelly, and so Kelly took me to lunch and said, wouldn't you like to teach at Georgetown? And I had just launched my website. So this was November 2011, and I started my website in September, so 2 months earlier, and I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm already doing Women in E-Discovery. I have a job. I just started this blog. And thank God I decided to say yes. And I owe that to Roy, a partner at my firm at Robbins Russell, who I went to, Roy Englert. I talked to him, so I owe that to him for saying yes. Okay, so let's switch directions a little bit. When you think about the history of our industry in terms of document reviews specifically, because CasePoint provides a solution for that, let's talk about for innovative legal teams as opposed to the ones that are still back in 2005. Where do you think we're headed Where do you think, Mr. Strategy Guy, we're headed in terms of more efficiencies to accomplish the review stage of the discovery process?
Oh, okay. I mean, without a doubt, there's going to be a lot more leveraging of technology around artificial intelligence. I mean, technology-assisted review, predictive coding, whatever you want to call it, has always been a form of artificial intelligence. The industry chose not to use the label of artificial intelligence because it sounded so hokey. It's just that now that AI is actually working in the world, and Google and Facebook and everyone else are really making it working, now everyone's okay with calling it AI again.
Yeah.
So TAR and predictive coding, super important, and it's just going to get more and more robust. But there are other techniques that are coming out there as well of leveraging AI. And I think it's absolutely going to be what the future of review is. You will always need attorneys. You will always need paralegals to be part of the process. But, there's this whole thing in chess. Ever since Kasparov lost to IBM's Big Blue computer in the late 90s, people thought, oh, what's the point in playing chess anymore? Because the computers are just going to end up beating everyone. Mm-hmm. But what's happened is chess masters now play each other while using the software. And the software and the chess master combined are actually play a much more interesting game than either one individually. And I think that's kind of what's happening in e-discovery in its own way, which is you have attorneys that are leveraging all this technology. It may be a smaller team, but the two have to still work hand in hand.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a personal question for you. What do you wish? Because, as we've talked about, it's a little bit of a struggle trying to get attorneys to use the technology. But what do you wish litigation attorneys would open their minds to in terms of how technology can help instead of hinder their practice of law?
I think for most people, and this is a common theme for me, is there has to be a level of curiosity. And a lot of people, and it's not just litigation attorneys, it's all sorts of people, like to do things the way they did it last week, just because they worked last week, it worked well enough, mm-hmm. and they don't want to rock the boat. I mean, litigation is a high risk enterprise, and there's a lot at stake. People don't want to rock the boat. But with a little bit of curiosity, you could spend 5% of your time thinking about how you could use a technology in a different way. And then you could, as a litigator, become an innovator in litigation and provide your clients with better results, both monetarily and just hopefully with winning in the way you need to win. But it just takes curiosity. And I am frustrated that sometimes litigators that I've come across they probably don't have the time, frankly, but they just don't exude that curiosity about how to use technology.
Yeah, you said it well, because, me working mostly in the law firm side and working with the lawyers, trying to get them excited about, the innovation that is happening in our industry. I would come back from conferences and, be all excited about, new ways to do things, new ideas, even in project management, not just technology. And the attorneys are like, very few attorneys are actually interested. They just want to keep doing it the way they've been doing it, and they've been practicing law and getting clients and winning cases, and why do they need to worry about the technology side? And then there's the other ones, the innovative attorneys that really realize how much money can be saved, how much efficiency can happen just by allowing a little bit of technology help,
Thankfully, whether it's going to actually help or not, the ABA model rules of ethics now indicate that attorneys actually need to understand the technology both their clients are using and that are available to them in order to best represent the client. It's always been an obligation to be a zealous advocate for your client. And now that specifically includes understanding the use of technology. And many states and jurisdictions have adopted those model rules or incorporated the best parts of them. So it's in their interest now to look at the technology from an ethical standpoint. Hopefully that will for those who wouldn't pushed over the edge enough, now this is one more thing to kind of nudge them along.
Yeah, and we're up to 28 states that have adopted the requirement that attorneys know how to use technology, or at least hire the right person. You can't play dumb anymore.
Right.
Okay, so I'm curious, because you are very geeky. Do you know of
Yes,
any?
you said that a number of times.
I love that about
And
you,
it's
David.
true.
What technologies exist outside of our industry that you think we should embrace? Do you see anything going on outside of legal? Because it's happened over time. Legal is all of a sudden adopting a technology that another industry has been using for 10, 15 years.
I mean, I hate to sound just like a soundbite, but I mean, artificial intelligence in all its forms has got to be a prime example. And I know that with the introduction of TAR, if you want to call it like 2010 about, it's not like we've been ignoring new technologies coming in and informing the way we do things in litigation support. But I think there's a lot more opportunities to adopt. And when we think of artificial intelligence, we often think about helping review documents and automatically coding documents and the like. But what if you're using artificial intelligence, if you do have a review team, to analyze the productivity of the contract reviewers who are working on the team? And there's all sorts of things you can do. Because what a lot of other industries are doing is they're optimizing every stage of their process. And whenever you're dealing with large amounts of data, you have the opportunity to use artificial intelligence, neural networks and the like, to analyze that data to help optimize it. And I think we're going to see that in a lot of industries. When financial technology, medical technology, and pretty much every consumer-facing product is using a technology like artificial intelligence, it has to be a significant impact, and it is. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in e-discovery.
So, do you mind if I put you on the spot, because you often define things for me? For those people that are watching that aren't quite sure what AI is, or what they see it in the news, they see it in the blog posts, they see people talking about it being the next big thing, but are you able to simplify what you think AI is without comparing it to Siri or Alexa?
Oh yeah, no, there's no need to compare it to Siri or Alexa. I mean,
Okay.
It's anywhere where there's a lot of data, and it could simply be, you could apply AI to the telephone calls you make from your home phone. There's patterns of information, and it's the larger amount of it. Like, think about a team of document reviewers reviewing documents. There is a pattern of how quickly they click to the next document, how quickly they look on the next page, how much time they spend on this or that. Anytime there's lots of data, you can use artificial intelligence to help demonstrate where the patterns are in the data that are very hard to do from running a query, or very hard to do, and you can apply it to just about anything. And machine learning is the phrase that we often use instead of calling it artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence sounds like a Hollywood thing. Yeah. But machine learning sounded somehow more scientific. But it's pervasive in everything we do now.
I agree. Michael Filson, I'm going to answer your question offline, okay? All right, so last question for you, because I want to be respectful of your time. What would you say to someone who's interested in a litigation support career here at the end of 2017 going into 2018?
Okay. So those who want to enter the
that have an
career?
interest in doing litigation support.
Okay.
The people I
mean, I would just, yeah. I would say, the nice thing is what it takes is a curious mind. And it also takes a desire to dig into some of the details. I don't think any one thing that we do in litigation support is rocket science. I mean, I'd love to say that what we do is just, some sort of, esoteric thing that only the brightest minds can achieve. It's not true. What is true is that if you're curious about how things work, and you're willing to dig into some details, you'll make a big difference. It doesn't require a computer science degree. It doesn't require even a legal background. It does require in you being curious. And as long as you're willing to do that and work hard and frankly follow all the other advice you have on your website, there's no reason why everyone can't succeed. But if you're one of those people like, I just kind of like to have people tell me what to do, I'm not sure that's going to work entirely, because you have to have a little bit of curiosity to drive you day to day. So,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's a lot of qualities that I think make someone good at litigation support. But we often say that you have to be not afraid, like to push a button or to, is when it comes to software and data and dealing with, the things that the hardware, the things that we deal with in litigation support, like, getting the data, transferring the data, putting the data into a database, putting the database out of, data out of a database, all of that. You have to be not afraid to go, well, I'm not sure why it's not working, so I'm going to try to click here, here, and here, and, troubleshoot on the fly. You also have to be willing to go to Google and figure out the answer, because there's lots of answers that we don't know on the fly. I'm sure that my lit support friends on the line, in the audience can attest to that. There's many times where we're blindsided, like, I don't know. I'm going to go call my smart friend David, or I'm going to Google it, So
well, one of the things I did in my Georgetown classes is almost in one of the first days, I would have people look at a concordance load file, and I'd say there's an error. There's actually 2 errors in this concordance load file. Can you figure out what they are? And they're like, what the heck is a concordance load file? I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm showing you something on the screen.
Yeah.
Can someone just yell out what they think is the error? And what they realized, the whole point of the exercise was to look on the screen like, oh, I noticed that thing's out of place. And hey, did you notice that these lines are all the same, but this other line isn't? And I'm like, yes, you just figured out how to solve the problem. You don't need to know a dang thing about a load file. You just need to be curious as to like, oh, yeah, something is out of place. And that's what a lot of lit support is.
And like you said, a pattern. You can see, without knowing anything about what those funky delimiters are, you can see the pattern, and you can see where the pattern gets off. Yeah, that's a perfect example. That's funny. Sherry Rather saying, think outside the box, color outside the lines, and I've heard her say that personally. Ramesh is saying, lit support plus AI does sound rocket science to those who are not tech savvy. That's why I had you define it, because it does, it sounds like this thing that's unattainable to a layman like myself, Does that make sense?
Well, and I did not do a very good job of explaining it. But I will say that the nice thing is, so software providers will write AI layers that help everyone else. They don't have to, not everyone has to understand the rocket science behind it. But everyone should benefit from leveraging it to benefit the client.
Okay. We've been keeping up with the comments, so we can see them on the screen. So I think we're good in terms of answering anybody's questions. If you have any questions, you got to get them in really fast, because there is a delay. If you have any last minute questions for David, Mr. Smart Guy. All right, let's see here. Okay. I'm going to let you go, David, but I really appreciate, it's going to come up on the screen in a second. Michael, I don't know if you go by Mike, but there it is. You see it on the screen. 30 years in law, but this old man can comprehend, so anyone can.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Wade wants to know what the next step for you is.
For me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I love it at this company that I'm at, and I'm going to see it through the duration. I mean, there's the great thing about where I'm at, or I'm sure at many other service providers, is that the industry is changing so much that the company doesn't have to. I don't have to change companies. I just get to enjoy the change of the industry and get to execute the change here. So I love the group of people that I work with, and I wouldn't change that. So let's just see where the industry all takes us.
Well, they are very smart people. I mean, I was a client and they solved a lot of things that were outside the box for me. I was like, I don't know how you're going to do this. And next thing you know, Amy, it's done. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Which always makes, me look good. Ramesh is saying great insights, David. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you, and thank you, Amy.
All right, you guys, I'll see you. Thanks for showing up today on Veterans Day. For those of you that are off work, congratulations. Most of us are not. And I will see you next Friday at the same time. Thank you all for joining us. David, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Amy.